Well, as you can see, it was a very windy day in the garden this weekend when I was working on some things, but it was kind of an important day in the garden because some exciting things were happening. So before we get to that, I decided I was going to clean out the circle garden here, which just had so many leaves in it. So I started getting in there and trying to rake. First, I tried to blow them out, and that didn't work at all. So I started raking out some of these leaves because there's just way too many in there. So I've got a variety of things that grow in this garden, but mostly annuals. So in some areas, like the leftover dead bits of annuals, which I wouldn't mind leaving in the ground and just cutting them off, just actually fell out of the soil. So then I went through and took care of some of the shrubs that grow in this area. So the first one is this Sweet Spire Fizzy Mizzy, which actually showed a lot of dead this year. There was a few of them that had a lot of stems that were not alive, some that had a lot of tip damage on them. This plant is hardy here, but we had a really tough winter in that we had some very cold temperatures down to about -15 with almost no snow cover for a good part of it. And I kind of think that probably that's what happened with this Fizzy Mizzy. I think they'll probably all be fine, but I had to cut them back significantly harder than I was hoping I would have to. Then the next thing I did was take after the Bobo hydrangeas in this area, and you'll note that I cut these back really quite hard. I wasn't really happy with where they had been branching. I think the past few years I've been cutting them a little bit higher perhaps. So I decided to go a little bit deeper in the cuts this year just to try to get some lower branching on these. I mean, they're going to grow to whatever height they're going to grow to. But I thought that the branching, they were getting a little spindly on the bottom. As you can tell, these still always bloom prolifically. Pretty much on these Bobos, I find that the entire top of them is just covered in flowers. These are a variety of panicle hydrangeas, so you can cut panicle hydrangeas back really quite hard without any real repercussions for them. They're really probably one of the easiest care hydrangeas you could ask for. They don't really get too particular about much. So all of this was being done for sort of a special occasion day, which is pot moving day. So this is the day that we move any of the shrubs that I'm overwintering in the garage, the unheated garage, out. And what I found is that things can go pretty wrong with this process at this point. Many times I have lost things as they've come out. Often I think because I'm doing it too late. So as you can tell, there's only a small window, then a window through the door in here. So there's not a lot of light in there. So these plants are a little bit shocked when it comes to getting out in the sun again. Now the 4 boxwoods that I grow in pots and keep in the circle garden here are plenty hardy. The plants themselves are plenty hardy. It's actually the pots that are not frost-proof. So I'm putting them in there not just for a little bit of additional protection for the plants, which would be fine probably, but a lot of the reason is for the pots. So I put all of these, I've got little bricks that I set in the garden there so that there's a solid base for these to sit on. I get a little bit particular about keeping things level in the garden. It's one of my personal little pet peeves. I don't usually take a level to these or anything. I just eyeball it, but it is important to me that they stay level throughout the season. And of course, if they were sitting just on soil, they would probably sink a little bit in one corner or the other. So I'm pretty sure this variety is green velvet, and most of the boxwoods actually came out of storage looking really, really good. There is one exception, and I had forgotten about it until it came out, which was that one of these lost a pretty big chunk of it in fall, and I cut it back to mostly good wood, but there was a large dead chunk, and as I come to the side here, you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to give this some time to grow out, but it really does bother me when things that are supposed to match don't match. This is always the problem when you've got things that are supposed to match, because invariably something like this happens. So I may end up replacing this boxwood, but as you can see, really they've gotten pretty big over the years, so that's not a small boxwood that I'm going to have to buy if I decide to replace that one. This one pot did have a little crack in it, and I could tell since there was a chip in it, it was definitely something where I hit the pot on something. I don't think it's going to break fully or anything, and honestly, these are not like special or precious pots, so I may have to replace that pot in the future. So one of the other things that I was aiming to do on this day was get out there and spread some fertilizer. But one of the things that I was not fertilizing that day was the boxwoods. And that's because I like to use a boxwood specific fertilizer for that called Top Buxus, which is a synthetic fertilizer. And with organic fertilizers, you can kind of put those in the ground and they will soak in, and the plants will sort of take them up. Nothing bad's going to happen if the fertilizer sits there before the plants really need it, and it's ready and waiting for them when those plants start growing again, because things are just starting to come out of dormancy now. But with a synthetic fertilizer, you can get into a situation where you've got too much fertilizer sitting on there, and it can burn roots and everything. So I don't do my first boxwood fertilizer application until we're steadily warm, which will be probably in mid-April or so. Now, I've been using this Top Buxus brand basically since I found boxwood blight in my garden, because many people suggested that I check it out. And I had actually seen it mentioned on Gardener's World or maybe some of the other British gardening shows in the past. So they have two main products. One is a fertilizer, which really does push a lot of growth. I don't know if you need it so much unless you're really trying to bulk up boxwoods, but it certainly does that. But the other product they have is a spray that's called Restore and Protect, and it comes in these little pills that kind of act like Alka-Seltzer tablets that you mix into, I think it's a quart of warm water. Put that in a pump sprayer, and then you spray everything. And boy, that product seems to really make a big difference. So they did give me a coupon code for that. So I think it's 10% off. So I'll put the link to that in the description with that code. So if you do need some of that fertilizer, you want to pick some up for spring when you're ready to use it, you can at least get 10% off it. So the other really exciting thing that happened is that I was able to clean out all of the containers from all of the winter decorations, which I've been dying to do because they have been looking absolutely wretched. But those pots have all been frozen for for the whole winter. So I've been really waiting to get in there. And then over the past week, the soil loosened up enough that I was actually able to get in there and clean out those pots. And what was left behind was this pile of all the stuff that I was saving, which is all the faux botanical stuff that goes in there. And then I always save my pine cones every year and reuse those from year to year. And then I also saved some of the yellow twig dogwood, because I'll put that in I'll do a couple of spring containers, and I like that yellow twig dogwood in those spring containers quite a lot. So you've seen the boxwoods, but there were other plants that we brought out of the garage, including this Ruby Ruffles patio peach, which really did not put on a lot of growth last year. There's a lot of buds on it right now. I certainly hope it starts doing some growing. I was a little disappointed in its rate of growth last year, but I find this spot in front of the garage here to be a little tough to grow in. I had some wire vine and Carrick's Flocka Blue Zinger in there that I just dug up out of the garden last year. That stuff was really crispy, so I'm just going to go back and cut that all back, and if it regrows, it regrows, and if not, I'll just pull it out of that pot. But the really exciting thing was that Fiona Sunrise Jasmine, which I grew in the window box last year, and then I had one in the large container with the bananas. I repotted those, put those in the garage over winter, and they have buds on them. They're actually looking really good.
So, I mean, you can see some of this is, maybe you can see, quite long. 8 feet long or so. So I'm going to prune it. I don't know how far I'm going to prune this back, but I'll prune it back to a bud somewhere. We can always prune more, but I just don't think we want this all flopping around. So, but the thing is, like I said, I'm not declaring victory yet, because this is the part where I have lost, this is the stage on overwintering plants where I have lost a ton of things in the past. It's not uncommon for things to come out with buds, and then I lose them after that. So hopefully we continue to be successful here, but you know, it won't be successful to me until we really see some fresh new growth coming out, like, and thriving. So my plan with these is, these are going to do the in and out thing, in and out of the garage for a few days here. So I just brought them out. It's a nice overcast day, and this is nice and protected here against the garage. So I'm just going to, you know, bring them out here during the day. A lot of times I stick things in this planter here just to set it out of the way a little bit. And I just, you know, I do a lot of in and out with these. And on nice days, and especially nice days that are overcast, they will come outside, and we'll just gradually get these used to the sun, because these have clearly been trying to grow in there, and there's been obviously no light. So that can be really tough for a plant to adapt to the sun after a while. So we want to take it, if I learned anything about this, it's take it really slow with things that are questionable. So 2 of them look pretty good. This is the 3rd one that was in the banana planter that was never that good last year. It might be okay, but we'll see. So those, oopsies, that's great. Throw it around, that'll help. This guy doesn't look so good right here. So I just kind of cut back the growth so it's not flopping around quite so much. And we'll do the in and out with these and hope that everything goes well. But so far, I think it's quite promising. Now, it's not all sunshine and roses here. Let me show you. All right, this is the Mahonia Soft Caress that I tried to overwinter in there. Now, these had been planted in the pool containers, kind of on the back side and the shady side of things. And they were looking really good, but they are super crispy. And Mahonia is supposed to be pretty evergreen. And you know, I don't think anyone's Mahonia is supposed to be looking like this right now. So I'll do the same thing with these. I won't give up on them yet. I can always, you know, cut them back, which, given what's happening here, looks like probably a good idea. But I'm going to guess these are probably done for, but we'll try. And honestly, that's mostly what I was trying to do with these, was do this experiment of whether this will work or not. And then I think this was a sunshine ligustrum. And I mean, maybe this is okay. I guess we don't really know, but it sure feels crispy. So I don't know. We'll see. Again, this one might need to cut back. We'll do the in and out and give it a try.
So the last thing I wanted to do was actually just clean up a few of the boxwoods. So these are the better boxwoods, skylight boxwoods, which are a very tall, narrower variety. And I have several of them planted here in this relatively new planting between us and the neighbors. And the plan there is for these never to be tightly clipped. They're meant to be kind of looser, but I think even with things that you're not tightly clipping, it's kind of nice to just keep a little shape on them. But for whatever reason, these skylights really sustained a fair amount of winter damage on the tips. So when you see that sort of whitish color on the tips, that's all winter damage. And I think what that's from is, I think these skylight boxwoods just really want to grow, and I think they put on so much growth, I mean, like a lot of growth last year, that that growth just didn't have time to harden off before winter came and hit it. So I just went in there and tried to nip off some of that sort of unsightly growth, clear that up a little bit so we leave way for some new buds to form, and we'll do a proper job of taking after these boxwoods. Usually around the end of May is when I do that. And then I forgot that the very last thing I wanted to do was just a tiny little bit of pruning on my above and beyond rows. I had gone through earlier this year, or maybe in fall, and tied in a lot of the canes into this sort of serpentine pattern so that it could get lots of horizontals going on, so we hopefully get a lot of flowering buds on them. But when I was looking at it the other day, I realized I left some real spindly stuff in there and some crossing branches. So I just want to go in there and clean that up a little bit, take out a few things that don't need to be there.
Momentous day here, bring these out, and I will keep you up to date on what happens with like the kind of questionable things like the jasmine, and if that Mahonia and the ligustrum have any chance in heck of doing anything. And have a great day in your garden. I hope it's warmer in yours than it is in mine. Bye-bye.